This is Glambition Radio, episode number 235 with Michelle Bosch, land investment expert. Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and mom of twins. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are rewriting the rules for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And we're doing it with style. Let's go. Happy election week. I'm recording this on Monday, and when you hear this show drop Wednesday, it should be an interesting time. I just hit a live on Instagram this morning, just reminding everyone that, your reality is not the information coming at you from your phone or your computer or your TV. You are creating your reality, and you make decisions that influence the environment around you, your vibe. We're not saying there's not certain circumstances and things going on in the world, but if there ever was a week that you need to reconnect with this and rise above, no matter what's going on, it's now. Go watch that if you want to. I posted that on Monday morning on my IG, Allie Brown Official. IG is where I play mostly these days, so please connect with me there. And please share the show. There's some women who really need to hear what we're talking about. It's just a different level. If you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. Now, speaking of someone who is all about creating your own reality, I'm very excited to get my longtime client and friend, Michelle Bosch, on the show. There's two types of people out there teaching real estate, wealth building, all that. There's the kind that have realized that they'll make more money teaching it than actually doing it. And then there's the people who have actually been doing it their whole lives and quietly making a lot of money without screaming about it everywhere. And then deciding, this could help a lot of people right now. That's Michelle and her husband, Jack. And I want to draw that distinction because in a world, there's just so much scamming going on and people teaching BS stuff in the wealth building category. Michelle's the real deal. To the point that, several of my clients and the other members in Premier and the Trust, which Michelle is a member of, they are now, getting involved in what she's doing on different levels. But don't take my word for it. Listen to her. You're going to learn some great stuff today, no matter what. And I think what I love the most is the part of her story about immigrating here from Honduras with her mom, and how a decision that her father made years ago before he died, a big decision, really not only helped her and her mother survive that time for years and then later thrive, but also was really that beginning of her mission of helping other people, other women, other families look at wealth building in a different way. When you think about money and wealth and all this, it's relatively still new for women. Just over a few generations ago, we were property, but now we can build portfolios of property, right? So it's all changing. So, don't be ashamed or feel guilty if you're not up to speed enough on what you could be doing, but learn, ladies, learn. And we got to start thinking about this a lot differently. And I was quite intrigued when I learned about what they recommend for a lot of people, especially getting started, is to not even mess with houses. They do something and teach something called land flipping. And you'll hear a bit about that today. But at the very least, just listen to her story. It's so inspirational, and in such an instant gratification world right now, where you think you're going to do a post on Instagram and make a quick $100,000. It's a refreshing story about hard work, about perseverance, about waiting to do certain things until you're ready. And I just know you're going to love it. Quick shout out to 2 reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts. Diane Nagel says, this show title says it all. Love, love, love this podcast. I stumbled on it a while ago and look forward to it each week. The topics are insightful, thought-provoking, uplifting. There's always something to learn. This elevates the conversation for women. Thank you. And then the next is inspired by Shamey From the US, I am leveling up listening to Allie. I'm an entrepreneur. Just starting out, I figured I might act like I've made it already and go straight to the top and get advice from Allie and her guests. I love this podcast. The lessons, the female power, courage, and vulnerability keeps me pushing forward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking a minute to leave us the review. It's working. More women are discovering the show. It's getting shared. We're up on the categories. It does make such a huge difference. So, a little karma, throw it out there. I'd appreciate it. It'll come back to you. And a reminder that this show is sponsored by The Trust. The Trust is the new modern network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. I'm happy to share as well that our guest today on the show, Michelle Bosch, has not only been in my premier private coaching group for 2 years, but is now also a member of The Trust. So you'll be in very good company. If you or another female leader you know is craving more powerful connections, more elevated conversation, and a modern platform for connecting with other high-performing women globally, visit jointhetrust.org for more details. Now, get ready for a really just wonderful conversation. I was so pleased with this, with my client and good friend, Michelle Bosch. Michelle, I would like to know where you are right now.
I am actually sitting in Paradise Valley, Arizona, in my office overlooking a beautiful mountain. And we are right now, in the beginning of September, celebrating. I'm celebrating for the whole month. I'm taking the lead from, another of the Premier and Trust members that you have also interviewed here on the show. And I'm celebrating for the whole month of September to my birthday.
I think that's Myoshia's style. And some of you know what we're talking about. But yeah, we've been to your house. It's stunning. And in fact, some of the members are like, why don't we have the meeting here? Maybe we'll be showing up at your door one day and we'll expect treats and drinks and food.
It would be my pleasure.
I'm sure it'd be great. So I'm so, for 2 years, I kept thinking I'd already had you on the show. And we kept having that conversation. And then you're like, no, I've never been on the show. I'm like, are you sure? And
I wanted to write a book and I never got around to it.
And so here we are. But finally, I have you on the show. And Michelle has just become a dear friend of mine. She started off as a client. And I'm so excited to finally have you on here, Michelle, because for a few reasons. Number one, I believe what you are teaching right now is more relevant than ever for the women listening right now, who it's time to really wake up to a few things they need to get in order for the coming times. And second is your story. Who you are is really such a big part of how you formed your mission for helping other women and families build wealth for themselves. So would you mind if we start there to, your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. I will probably start with me coming into the country. I'm an immigrant into the U.S. I'm originally from Honduras. I came here to study, my undergrad and my MBA. I also got my MBA. And that was possible because of something that happened in my childhood. My father passed away when I was very young. And as a matter of fact, I was 9 months old. But about a year before he passed away, he had a brilliant moment. And he was a very accomplished lawyer back home with a very established practice. And so it wasn't, though, that practice or that, title and that profession what kept us afloat when he passed away. It was him investing in a piece of commercial real estate back home that to this day is part of, his legacy to my mother, to me, and now to my daughter. But I come into this country, I get, my MBA, and still, I do what everyone assumes that you should be doing, and that is to get a corporate job. A couple years into it, to cut the story short, I hated it. My now husband also hated it. We had no freedom. We had no fulfillment. And most important, our paychecks most definitely did not match our time and effort. We were putting 60, 80-hour weeks, 2 hours of vacation with both of us being from different countries and wanting to, visit our families.
That just did not work. The whole American vacation schedule, it doesn't work for anyone, especially Brett. He's Australian. They take 2 months there. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different, it doesn't make sense, especially to international people.
Yeah. But you know what? We couldn't let go of those jobs. Our green cards depended on those jobs. We had to start looking for a side hustle and grow that on the side until we had our green cards, you know. The side hustle that was natural, for us to look at was real estate. Like I said, my family had a very good story, a very good experience of creating what I like to call balance sheet wealth as opposed to income statement wealth. And so we started looking into it. We decided, okay, let's look at houses because houses is pretty much what everyone thinks of. Why can't I just, go ahead and buy a house, get some tenants in and start getting some passive income? Well, let me tell you, because we were both not from here, we were at a disadvantage. We didn't have any idea as to how to estimate repairs, foundations, roof. I mean, we had zero credit. It's not that we had bad credit, we just had no credit. So even, getting a loan on a rental house, was not something simple for us. So we discarded that and we kept looking, and then we came across land. In our pursuit of contacting motivated sellers, one of those motivated sellers, instead of owning a house, actually owned a piece of land. And we came across land. It was simple, very little competition, none of the hassles and headaches of houses. And that pretty much became our cash machine. That first year, we flipped like 60 pieces of land. The next year, 150. And then we really, nailed down our method, which now we call the land profit generator method. And within 18 months, we scaled that up to a 7-figure company. And then 12 months after that, into an 8-figure business with about $70,000 worth of passive cash flow from notes, just from land, no houses. And so it has become, an amazing cash machine that then by the time the 2008 recession hit, we were sitting on a ton of cash profits and cash flow to go out there and start building a portfolio of single family homes. We had mastered the land, the land flipping, and now we were ready for improved property for houses, bought about 50 rentals here in Phoenix, and then, moved to 2 other markets. And then in 2015, we thought, okay, we've been doing this now. We know exactly how to repair a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And we're looking at a door at a time. How can we start looking at 100 doors at a time? And we started investing in large apartment buildings, 100 plus units that we syndicate. And we're actually getting ready this year to actually buy our first asset without syndication, without outside investors, which we're very, very excited. But it all came, Allie, from finding the number one, the cash machine with the land flipping, and then really focusing on that and mastering that through scale, through repetition. Repetition is the mother of all skill. And it's so easy for us, as entrepreneurs to get bored because something is working so well that we want to go start something else before mastering something. You know what I mean? So yeah, focus was really important for us,
Let's talk about, tell us about, a lot of people go, wait, what, land? Because, we've all heard of, buy real estate or buy a house and rent it, right? Buy a duplex and rent it. We've seen people do that, and it was typically a good move. Unless, like you said, it was a disaster in the end, like with repairs and tenant issues. And what do you guys say? Tenants, termites, toilets, right?
Yeah.
Like those are the 3 things you don't want to deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so how did you even know, going back, like put yourself back in that moment when you and Jack were like, maybe we should buy and flip some land? Like, did you even know that was a thing, or did you just try it, or did you get some information? How did that work?
Yeah, it was, I think there being an immigrant actually became an advantage. Number one, I think of the immigrant advantage is the number one component is that you see opportunities that others miss. And number 2, you have zero fear of hard work. And so for us, we actually learned that here in the US, there is a concept called you losing your property to tax delinquent property, to being delinquent with your property taxes, basically. That is something that is unheard of, both in Honduras and Germany. There's no way in the world that you're going to lose private property over property taxes, or not paying your taxes. And so I remember us coming to an auction in California and noticing that a lot of the properties that were going out, on auction for sale were actually pieces of land. And we thought, wow, people have had to not pay their taxes for 5 years before their property gets auctioned. What if we contact these people through direct marketing, through direct mail in year 2 or 1 or 3 or 4 before they get to the auction, when it's actually competitive and it's not as good a deal? You know what I mean? Right now, we are able with direct marketing to contact people, and not just tax delinquent people, but owners of all vacant land across the U.S., and buy their properties for anywhere between 5 and 25 cents on the dollar, and then turn around and sell that for a quick flip. We call it, that's why it's called land flipping, of 60 to 80% of market value, or we sell at 100% of market value, but we offer seller financing, where we now become the bank. Somebody makes a down payment and they make payments for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and that's how we were able to create passive cash flow from land, which is normally an asset class that people don't think of as having the potential to create passive cash flow for you.
Yeah, it's just something that maybe it's not as sexy as, buying real estate, or a lot of people
if it makes money, it's sexy.
Yeah. I think that's where we need to get over it. And Americans also need to get over the hard work portion. You guys, I got to give you credit. I mean, you just took it on and figured it out. And I think that's a lost art these days. And it's getting to be more of a lost art. And it was so great to see you guys, this part of your business, take off once you started really, when people were kind of tuning into what you're doing and you're talking more about it. And now you have so many people learning the system. And I want to have Michelle on as well, because I have seen the results this is getting, because several of the other members in the Premier Group, which Michelle's been a part of, and the Trust Network, which Michelle is also part of, have jumped on board with Michelle. One of the members even decided to create a new company with her brother, and they're doing it with that company, so she's empowering her family at the same time and giving him something to do. There's just so much activity going on. Why is this a hot time for land right now?
I think we have been in the wonderful position that it can be done completely remotely. It is basically made for a pandemic. In that you don't see the land, you don't have to go and inspect it, you don't need to go and assess whether it needs repairs or not, you don't need to show the house, you don't need to show the land, you know what I mean? Like you have to do with houses. And everything can be completely virtual. You basically deal with your seller, you deal with your buyer, everything via email, phone, everything is done remotely. So that's number one. The second reason why I think it's working really, really well, it's because all of a sudden we're all stuck at home, not being able to travel. And anyone that is looking for a piece of property, maybe a couple hours away from their home so that they can have a little bit of sanity, is now really in the market, basically looking to buy land. And we focus on 3 pieces of land, specifically infill lots in big cities, path of growth land, which means that you're about 45 minutes away from a downtown metro area. And then we also specialize in recreational property, about 2 hours away from a major city. And basically everything that has to do with path of growth and recreational property is like, we cannot keep it in our inventory. We can't buy it fast enough.
Wow. And people are moving out of the cities, a lot of cities right now. And I see that trend continuing in the future. If the cities aren't going to bring the benefits that they had. I mean, New York City, for example, their restaurants still aren't open for indoor dining as we're recording this in September.
Yeah.
Because people want to sit down and have like a nice dinner. They can't even do that. So people are starting to think, well, if I'm not going to get the city benefits, why don't I move out? So I see all the trends just aligning for you guys. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it has. And 2008 was the same thing. And I think it's because people that are buying, land in general have a much long-term horizon in mind, as that being an investment. And right now, we're seeing it again, but never like 2008. I mean, buyers of all kinds showing up in the marketplace, ready to invest, ready to buy a piece of land. And we couldn't be more excited on both the investing side of our business and on the coaching side of our business, because now we also coach others, on how to flip land. And we are actually on a mission to create 1,000 millionaires using land flipping. It's something that is very dear to both Jack and myself. We We, for many years, worked on a tactical and strategic level. And now, in our coaching business, it's much more of a purpose-driven underlying, current for us to keep on doing the hard work, pretty much, and sharing this with others, because it has been the cornerstone of our wealth. We came here with absolutely nothing. Yes, I probably didn't get bogged down with a huge student debt, because that piece of commercial property back home, was able to pay for my schooling here. But other than that, I came with 2 suitcases to my name and nothing else, and in pretty much one generation, being able to accomplish what we have been able to accomplish so far, and have that be a legacy that I can leave on for my daughter, and really change our family trees. Both Jack and I, my mother is a retired elementary teacher. Both his parents are also, his father's also actually high school teacher. His mom was a stay-at-home mom. So we come, even though in my family there was this investing mindset, still we come from very simple backgrounds, and just to have been able to accomplish with an asset class that is so simple, like you said, has none of the 3 T's of termites, tenants, and toilet headaches, and then use that basically as a vehicle to create cash profits, cash flow, and then move on to other asset classes, has been a game changer for us. It was completely transformational, and we want to now be able to create that same transformation for others. We see it day in and day out in our clients, and I don't think anything else. I mean, we've done really, really well with the investing side, but nothing has given us the level of fulfillment that seeing everyday people, just walk in the door, start our program, and completely transform and change their lives. Because a win in one category of your life, in the finances, translates to a win in everything, in better parenting, and having, especially now, much more access to the possibility of hiring perhaps even a teacher to come and, do schooling with your son and daughter, being able to have access to healthcare that, you would have not had access to before. We have a wonderful, doctor here in town, and none of the stuff that we go and the types of treatments that she offers are covered by our insurances. And we always think, wow, we are where we're at because we continue to be in peak performance levels. But in order to continue being in peak performance levels, we need to have this level of access. Can you imagine if we depended on what our insurance could pay or not pay? You know what I mean? So yeah, now more than ever, there is this incredible, I think, urgency for people to wake up if you're in a 9-to-5, or, if you were getting confidence, cash confidence from government, from healthcare system, from an educational system. If anything, 2020 has shown us that you cannot rely on any of that whatsoever. You know what I mean? That it's up to you, which for me, it's something that, culturally speaking, I already grew up with. Honduras is a third world country. There is no social safety net to kind of like prevent you from going down the deep end. If you are going to do something out of yourself, it's going to be up to you, And so, which is something that I think in the US is not so common yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. We're in an interesting time because you look at some other countries and they're completely dependent and used to the government taking care of them.
Yeah.
Honduras, you guys knew, like, you walk out your door, you're on your own.
You're
right?
on your own.
Your safety, your just everything. I want to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And the US, I feel, is in this like transitional phase. Like, I think you and I, over a glass of wine, maybe after one of the meetings with the gals, by the way, in the Trust and the Premier, we get into some really intelligent, deep conversations. Mm-hmm. It's not just about how'd your last launch go. We were talking about like the growth of wealth inequality, and Michelle had such an interesting perspective coming from Honduras. I mean, you grew up with a severe gap of wealth. Can you talk a bit about that? Because most Americans have no idea what that even looks like in a country like that.
It's basically a third world country where you leave your house if you're in upper middle class or upper class, and you see raw poverty around you everywhere that you go. Where if you want to have and stand a chance, of your children going and learning English, it's got to have to be in a private school. And all of those things cost money, especially if it's a private school where most of the teachers are American and they're being paid in American standards. Therefore, tuition is going to be in American standards, but you live in Honduras, you know what I mean? So you also have the situation where I think I was commenting with you right before we started the show. I had a Zoom meeting with, my 25-year, how do you call it here in the US, homecoming reunion, or, when you meet with,
your class reunion.
Yeah, class reunion. And on Zoom with people that went to school with me from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. I mean, to this day, it hasn't changed. When I left, and it continues to be, if not more severe, the fact that you have to have, as part of your P&L item, an item for security. You're going to have to hire, private security guards for your business, for your house. You're going to have to have a bodyguard for yourself.
Wow.
To, if you have a driver bringing your children to school, and you're doing something else during the day, you're going to have two people, one that goes and picks up your child, and that is there not just as a driver, but as protection for them, because, you could very easily get your child kidnapped and so on and so forth. And we were talking about that and how that is still a reality, and how right now the country has been faring, with the current pandemic, with about 41 ICU units in the entire country being available. And you better believe that the people that are the high earners are the ones that are going to be having access to those, not the rest of the population, if they needed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's incredible disparities and gap of wealth that we have had always, that now is going to be even more, more profound. And I think we are starting to see the beginning of that here in the US, especially with the huge wave of unemployment that we have been seeing right now as a result of the pandemic. And people need to definitely wake up and start thinking about plan B. If you do still have a job, you still need to be thinking about plan B and some sort of a side hustle, something that, can help you create another income stream for sure, that is much more in control and that is recession proof, that that works no matter what's going on in the economy. Because many people have come to that realization right now, because they've been placed against the wall to think about it, and otherwise I think we would still continue, what I like to call in La La Land a little bit. There's a lot of people that I was like, oh my gosh, how can they not get it? Brilliant, smart people in corporate jobs that, were like, they would ask us, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I invest in apartments, and I invest it because, or in real estate in general, because it's an amazing vehicle. I control, I can force appreciation on an asset. I can take tax benefits from it. All of my properties on the apartment side, I can do accelerated depreciation so that offsets my active income. On the land flipping side, it's you work with before tax dollars. I mean, there's so many things. And I'm surprised, every time I come across really, really smart people with amazing professions, and they don't seem to get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Where should people go to learn more, by the way, about your next training?
Every 6 weeks, we put up a free, I would say more like a boot camp, because it's actionable steps. And if you go to landflippingclass.com, we usually have 9-day boot camps where we bring people through, all the actionable steps of buying and finding a piece, an area to begin with to invest, finding the right market, buying, the piece of land, marketing it and selling it. And those are a lot of fun. We've had a lot of great feedback. We started doing those this year as a necessity, actually, inside of our Facebook group, which is also called Land Profit Generator, because we couldn't have those events live. And it's been fantastic, just the response and the feedback from everyone, inside of the group, whether they're new investors that just come into the group or old investors where, they get to learn the latest and greatest of what we're doing in our own investing business, land flipping business. So yeah, that's been great. Thank you for an opportunity to talk about it.
Michelle, can you share some of the stories of the students who have come through? Because people may be listening to you go like, well, gosh, she's so educated and knows so much about this. And, I know nothing. Maybe people are listening and they're like, well, I'm renting an apartment. How would I know how to go invest in land, and can I really do this? Can you talk about that entry point on how accessible really is this?
Yeah. So on the land flipping side, I mean, this is the simplest that it's going to get. That doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's the simplest asset class out there with the least competition. And I would say that we have anywhere from people that have been, night nurses, single moms, to, dentists, to attorneys that have sold their practices because they couldn't stand, to look into someone's mouth one more day. And
sorry, that is funny. That's just a good visual. They were like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Especially lately.
Exactly.
Right.
So really all walks of life, and all kinds of economic levels where they see the opportunity that it is a 7-figure opportunity for them to really very quickly generate, a ton of cash profits, basically, whether it be, cash profits from a quick flip or through seller financing to create, passive income, and that then have gone on to now, start investing either in apartments or in houses. And if they do in apartments, now they have the seed capital to go and find somebody, like me, and there's many other people out there syndicating, and become passive investors in apartment syndication, where, the apartment syndicator like myself operates the property, goes ahead and repositions the property. And what that means is that we bring it to the levels that it should be at in terms of not just physically the property looking great, but the health of the tenant base as well, so that we can increase NOI on those properties and produce actually returns for people that have invested with us passively. Those are, and there, I have people from all walks of life as well, investing in apartments as well.
Yeah.
So, if you're gonna start in apartments, is a great place to start passively so that you can learn as that property is being repositioned, by the operator. And if you are ready to actually do something actively, not passively, but actively, of course, I'm going to recommend land because, like I said earlier, that has been the cornerstone of our wealth. And if I was to lose absolutely everything right now, Allie, that's the very first thing that I would go back to, is doing huge high volume of land flipping. No question about it. Number one, because I have mastery over it. You know what I mean? We've done it for so many years now that it's easy for me to, put that and really scale that very quickly. So even to this day, if I had to start from scratch, I would start in that way. Probably, of course, at a completely different level of confidence, because now I have so much more capability, courage, cash flow, know-how, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't start flipping a property for $5,000 or $10,000. Now our comfort level is, in the 6 figures of a flip, where we can make 100,000, 200,000 in one flip. We're actually helping a student right now put together a deal where he's going to be netting $500,000. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is amazing. On a land deal. On a land deal. Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. Well, there's probably some, I had a little funny thought. There's probably some women listening too. If their husband's been out of work or he's on the couch, she's probably thinking, I could pick this up and put him to work. Have you ever seen that successful? Or is it kind of the thing that, like, do you see couples kind of get on board with this together? Or
Absolutely.
Is it something, okay, I'm just curious because I have a feeling there's some women listening going like,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's because in the coaching side, both Jack and I are very active, and therefore we get a lot of, spouses, working together because we ourselves work together. So we're modeling for them, how it could look to work together. So we do get quite a bit of couples coming in the door where, the first goal is to retire the first one, whether they have, their own practice or a corporate job. And then once that one is retired, the next one in line comes, the second spouse, to retire the second spouse and really live a life rich in entrepreneurial freedom, because we have figured out, everything that has to be automated, everything that has to be delegated. We've done it. We've failed already so that, others don't have to fail when they start. So it is, I think, a formidable business to really, for both spouses to really wrap their head around, just because of the simplicity of it, and start working together for sure. Yes.
Can I ask a dumb question? Does this also like alleviate you from social media responsibilities? Like you don't have to, this sounds great because you don't have to be online or promoting yourself or do you know what I mean? Like
No.
you could just quietly make money at home. There's nothing wrong with that, people.
Yeah.
Like you don't need I this sounds so great right now to me. I just mailing out letters, getting checks, don't have to go on Facebook and deal with these people. You know, like there's something to be said for this, or at least adding it to your business. I just loved so many things about it as I started to get to know you.
Yeah.
And all of you listening can tell, like, you know, we're in these meetings and then Michelle starts talking about what they're doing, the deals we're doing. We're all leaning in. We're kind of taking notes. You know, we're listening. We all learn from each other.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've been just so impressed with you and what you and Jack have created. Michelle, over the evolution of, you know, who you've become and the business leader you've become and the wisdom you've gained, can you share if the people you have surrounded yourself with, has that been a factor?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually would like to talk about that from a completely different perspective that I like to call the extension of faith. You know, when we start our businesses or when we start, you know, doing whatever our big purpose, our big, you know, reason to be here, or your money-making machine, whatever it may be, you know, you start with, you know, gaining confidence in your own skills, in your own capability, having faith in yourself pretty much, and in your ability to produce results and so on and so forth. And then comes a moment where you need to start extending that faith to, you know, having faith in the goodness of others. And you want to surround yourself with amazing people, amazing caliber of people that can really, you know, collapse time more than likely, you know, when you get to this second stage, you know, of the extension of faith, whose are going to be the most important, critical pieces of continuous expansion and growth for your business or for your endeavors, whatever those may be. Because any question, any how to what question where you don't know the answer, you don't have to know the answer. You know what I mean? You can just tap into a network of who's that might have the answer or might have access to another who that has the answer. And that's exactly what has happened even in Premier and in the trust. You know, it has been this trickle effect where if you're looking at ROI for joining a particular group, you know, from, okay, what was I able to make, you know, and add to my bottom line just, you know, from attending the meetings and learning a new concept or a new formula or a new blueprint, it is completely short-sighted, you know, to see it that way. But the connections of the who's that you make that either in that moment can probably solve a question that has been in your mind that you've been struggling with, a problem that you've been struggling for years, in probably one sitting or in one phone call, in one connection with, you know, to someone else, you know what I mean? So that is the second level of that extension of faith. And when you tap into that, Ali, what happens is that you can now rest in the strength of having faith in the unknown, knowing that no matter what comes your way, you know, I have an amazing group of people that I can tap into, you know, and really lean on and seek strategic advice and or say, hey, I'm dealing with this, you know, what do you guys think? Is this a good opportunity or is this something that is not a good opportunity? It may not even be challenges. It may just be opportunities and evaluating whether those opportunities are the right ones or not. And, you know, just having a group of people that are at your same level and that also appreciate that, you know, those three levels of faith, I think is crucial. And I always like to think of them, you know, and it has to start with you. And then you need to start expanding that to others. And then because you have those others, no matter what comes your way, you know that you can deal with. Like, for example, you know, part of Premier and the Trust, and I think you've had her here on the show as well, you know, Kelly Roach, you know, we've learned from her social selling, which was incredibly crucial. And it just required a phone call to say, hey, when can we start your program? Because I need to pivot really quickly. You know what I mean? And especially with building our own sales floor and our own sales team. And it's just having access to that caliber of individuals in the group. You know what I mean? We also have a proprietary software that we've developed to bring all our deals from A to Z, And I know that part of the trust, there's a few other ladies as well that, where software and technology is their forte, and tapping into their genius and into their experiences and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, the genius that I don't have, I really do have, because I have extended this faith bubble to just having faith in myself, to having faith in the goodness of others and in the unknown, you know what I mean? And having access to their genius as well as, I can kind of like borrow it, for a few minutes, for 20 minutes on a call, for an hour, and so on and so forth, and have access to it as well. And that is priceless.
It's a collective, and people use that word loosely, but it's such a valuable, it's a closed door collective, like in that, like, we're getting to a point. I chose the word trust because it's the perfect word on so many levels, because we have gotten to a point that we just trust each other. And I don't know if you're privy to this as well, Michelle, but like, I mean, there's 6-figure deals being done in the group now. We had 2 women start a business together because they kind of came together saying that one of them was saying, I've always wanted to start this kind of business and add it on. They're like, me too. And they're like, well, let's create this 3rd company and do this together. This is the kind of conversation and thinking that the men have done forever. And this is relatively new for the women. And that's why I also wanted to bring you on, because you think differently about wealth, and especially this generational wealth, because you were, blessed to grow up with that perspective. And I just want, all of you listening today, take that in. If nothing else, take in what Michelle's sharing about you doing something new and different for you and your family, whether you pull the husband in or not. Okay. We're talking about like you taking an extra step of doing that, and then look at, do I need to be around some different people? And if you're listening, whether it's one of my groups or another group, just find a group that elevates you, because that's going to become more and more important going into the next few years, because we're talking about this gap coming, which I've mentioned on previous shows. And you got to decide now, what end of that gap are you going to be on? Are you going to be on the top, or are you going to be on the bottom and having some real trouble? Now is the time to think ahead. It's a great time to do this, is to start thinking ahead on what you can do now to build up some additional cash and assets for the coming years.
Totally agree. And us as women, Allie, my mother, my grandmother, they didn't have access to the things that we have access to, the opportunities that we have access right now. Pretty much in 3 generations within the women in my family, we are going from being property to owning property,
Wow.
And we need to take advantage of the opportunities. You always say, our courage hasn't caught up with the opportunities that are out there. And it's time to start, thinking big. I continuously, strive to push the boundaries of what's possible even for me, in terms of even adding zeros to the assets that I'm buying, to the acquisitions. We started buying apartments in the $3 to $4 million. Now we're looking at $10 to $15 million deals, and possibly even higher than that. It's amazing. Now, Sophia is not going to start where I started, where my confidence level, I needed to start it with land. You know what I mean? She won't be starting at that level. She'll be able to definitely, borrow or, stand on the shoulders of my delusional confidence and aim even higher.
I love it.
Yeah.
Michelle, give that URL one more time where people can go.
Yeah. People can go and register for our classes at landflippingclass.com, or you can just visit our website at landprofitgenerator.com as well.
Okay. Last 3 pieces of advice for everyone.
Yeah. So I would say number 1 is to focus. Nothing will give you mastery like repetition and focus. And it's hard as entrepreneurs because we're curious by nature. But I cannot stress how important, mastering something is. And then once you've mastered and you have that down and you have a head to the horse, taking care of that, go and innovate and start something new. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be to definitely aim big, to think big, no matter what cards you've been dealt with. I always, saw the loss of my father as one, that was as big as the sky, but I didn't let that, bog me down. Instead, I've kind of used, his way of thinking, or, what I think would have been his way of thinking to continue, living my life. So no matter what cards you've been dealt with, aim high, dream big. And then the number third one, I would have to say, and it's something that I have cultivated now over the last, I would say 3 to 4 years. It didn't necessarily come natural to me. And it is to not overthink things so much. Your life is being built in moments of decision, quick decision making, trust your intuition, go, rely on the strength of those important who's that you have, chosen to surround yourself with, that have your same core values, and don't overthink it. I always say that courage loves speed, and fear wants you to think about things, for a long time. So don't overthink it. Just go.
I love it. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today, and just for sharing your story, and for all the people you empower. And I can't wait to see you at the trust meeting.
I am excited to see all the ladies and see you as well after so many months being in the house.
I want to hear about all your deals.
Absolutely.
Okay, hun.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new shows every week. And I'd love if you left us a review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. And I'd love to hear from you. Come join the conversation online. You'll mostly find me on Instagram, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and more. Just head to alliebrown.com. You will find them all there. And you can also learn about upcoming opportunities to meet in person. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you've tuned in.